Have you ever seen a really good movie that has great performances, but that made you feel really icky and you wished you hadn't seen it? That's this one. Welcome back to Glenn Hates Everything, where I hate on something in one unedited, raw, single take, complete with a cheat sheet. And today, I feel like the woman behind me there in that painting, after the movie I just saw. It's a really good one, yet I wish I hadn't seen it, and I never want to see it again. It's called Sovereign, and it's the debut of writer-director Christian Swagel, and stars Nick Offerman, who we loved in Parks and Recreation and won the Emmy for The Last of Us, and Jacob Tremblay, who most of us remember as the little boy in the movie Room. He's all grown up. I think he's 18 now, and he redeems himself here after that nothing of performance in The Life of Chuck, which I did not like at all. I actually hated that movie. Don't hate this one quite so much. This is based on a true story of Jerry and Joe Kane, the father-son, played by Offerman and Tremblay, who in 2010 got in a little trouble. These are folks kind of living off the grid in a home that's due for foreclosure, and Jerry Kane is what he calls a sovereign citizen, which is this growing, scarily expanding network of far-right wing activists who don't feel that they need to adhere to any laws or pay taxes. And sometimes it's something as simple as, I'm not going to pay for my pet license because my birth certificate represents me in all capital letters, and I'm a person who doesn't capitalize every letter. Finding little sort of inexplicable loopholes to evade the law, basically. And so Jerry Kane, I think he's like a construction worker, but on the side he gives a lot of lectures to people who are interested in the sovereign movement, and they're sparsely attended. His son, who is homeschooled, acts as his assistant at these lectures, and they just go around trying to help other people evade a parking ticket or not pay taxes, what have you. And so they now have a notice on their door that their place is going to be foreclosed on. They've got a certain amount of days to leave. And so they hit the road and continue doing these lectures. They're not making much money off of them. And Jerry Kane refuses to use that money to pay the mortgage on his house, much to his son's growing bewilderment and consternation. The son keeps looking online at schools he could attend. He's kind of obsessed with his next door neighbor, this young woman who he clearly is crushing on, and he would just love to be in that world as opposed to the one he's in. Yet he keeps his cards close to his chest. He is very respectful of his father and seems to love him despite this sort of stifling set of circumstances that they find themselves in. One of their chief adversaries is John Pouchard, played by Dennis Quaid, who's the chief of police in this Arkansas town. And he arrests both of them and holds them separately after them refusing to do something with the police. And here is where he is able to discover that the son might not be quite with his father and needs a little help. Bouchard's son is also a police officer, and he's Adam Bouchard, played by Thomas Mann, who you may remember from Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. And we keep cutting back and forth between these two sets of stories, not really clear why. Why do we invest a lot of time in the police versus just sticking with the Kanes? Because the sections with the Kanes are mesmerizing. Nick Offerman gives a really commanding performance. You just see the torture in his brain, trying to do what he thinks is right and can't understand why the rest of the world isn't with him. And he is just very, very adamant and stuck in this position as it feels increasingly dangerous. He keeps his house well stocked with AK-47s, for example, and anytime you bring up Chekhov's AK-47, it's going to go off of the third act, right? So we follow their adventures. At one point, he needs help from a friend, and that's in this sort of on-again, off-again girlfriend who feels Jerry saved her life at one of his lectures, gave her advice that helped her. And her name is Leslie Ann. She's played by the great Martha Plimpton, who has a brief but memorable role as someone who tries to help them out of a jam. And in one really particularly awesome scene, Jerry helps her overcome a fear of hers. And so you see the empathy that these characters have for each other, and there's kindness there. And there's certainly a push-pull of kindness versus very strict rules applied to John by Jerry. And so it's really heartbreaking. And Jacob Tremblay is fantastic here. He doesn't say a lot in the film, but it's all set on his face. And you can just see the conflict right there on his face without him having to say too much. It's a heartbreaking performance. And even though it's based on something true, the facts are played with a little bit about where this really went. But the crux of it is that you believe their intentions. And that's a tribute to Christian Swigle's script, which I think, while it doesn't go as deep as I think people would like, going deeper would have made this even more unwatchable, in my opinion. It's very slick and it's very streamlined, because I don't know how much of Jerry Kane one person can take in a movie. It reminds me of watching that film Star 80, Bob Fosse's last film, starring Eric Roberts. And he played a real-life guy who murdered Dorothy Stratton, who was the Playboy Bunny of the Year. And he was this sort of downtrodden sociopath who felt wronged by the world. And there's a lot of connective tissue between Eric Roberts' performance and Nick Offerman's. Nick Offerman swings for the fences here and dares to be a monster where you can actually see the human behind it. And that is quite an achievement. Blink and you'll miss it, or close your ears and you'll miss it. But there is a bit of a cameo played by his real-life wife, Megan Mullally. See if you can figure that one out. Dustin Lane is the cinematographer, whose work I'm not familiar with prior to this, but he has a real knack for geography, making you understand the situations that you're in that are kind of complicated and get rather well populated. Certain action sequences, without giving anything away, are really well handled and real visceral and real impactful because of his work. Does this sound like a recommendation? I don't know. In the current climate that we're in, we get this 24/7. So going out to a theater to see this is a risk. It's a choice. But I think you'll be missing out, if you don't go, on a couple of really fine performances here that really shine a light on the state of mind of this country right now, and shows you how something from 2010 brought us to where we are now. Because there is a lot along the way that has happened, but you can sort of see the beginnings of the cultural shift here in this film. So yeah, go see Sovereign, and wish you hadn't, and enjoy that. But until then, later haters.